Hello and welcome to the Merlin Lock podcast. I'm Merle.
And I'm Locke.
Set sail and low expectations for everything nerd, accompanied by a healthy, albeit shameful helping of pointless banter, lack of focus, and questionably acquired knowledge. Alright, so to start us off, I had this weird thought the other day. I want you to imagine the world as it is now, and we all just found out that let's say the past few months we found out that vampires do in fact exist in our society. Now, what is your initial reaction to this news?
Oh my god, how can I become one?
Really? Is that your first? You're like, I want to be a vampire?
I mean, why not? I mean, there's some downfalls to it, right?
Right.
If you go off of the cliches, the breath smells, that
Did you say the breath smells?
yeah, their breath smells, and they can't go out in the sunlight. I mean, that's most of the cliches of it.
Why does their breath smell?
I do not remember. I'm pretty sure that's a thing. If not, I'm wrong. I'll live with it.
Is that? I never heard that.
I
The smelly breath.
I think so. Or that was one of the misconceptions in the movie Lost Boys.
Oh, okay. So they just don't use teeth toothpaste, or they
Mm,
have tonsil stones or something.
yeah, I don't know what it is. I mean, after all, they have lived thousands of years, the vast majority of them. So,
Right, right. Probably didn't get their tonsils removed. Uh, yeah. But they don't necessarily ingest anything, do they?
I
Because
mean,
their
blood.
their fangs
Uh,
their fangs just act as straws, right?
uh,
Or do they just like,
I,
or do they just bite open the artery
I,
and then
I,
just like,
Yeah,
you know?
I thought the teeth were a means of puncturing so that they
Yeah, I
could
was never quite certain.
suck out the blood.
Okay, yeah. So the teeth don't act as strong. I don't know, like what put that thought in my mind. That must have been something from long ago, but that doesn't. Now that I say it out loud, it doesn't make sense whatsoever.
Uh,
Yeah. Anyway, what was that movie where they like the vampire came into the window and like bit the girl's neck, and then as he threw his cape over to start drinking her blood, you could hear him using a straw. What was that?
I, that sounds like an older like Dracula film or something.
That must have been. I can't remember.
Uh,
I vaguely remember something like
there were
that.
so many Dracula films, and it's hard to keep track of what was like a Dracula and what was like a Van Helsing or
Right.
something like
Yeah.
that. Um, and I've watched so many vampire type movies. It's entertaining to see how much they like change up the information. You know, they're like, well, we want to hit some stereotypes, but we don't want to go too far into it. We want to create our own story from it.
Right. Set themselves apart a little bit.
So like
Yeah, I get that.
the story for Lost Boys was like the kids believed that garlic would hurt the vampire,
Uh huh.
so they tried to sabotage this guy's meal with garlic, and they're like, "Yeah, it hurts, doesn't it? Because it's garlic." And he's like, "No, I like garlic. It's just too much of it." But the basic thing was like a lot of the rules that were set for vampires, the rules were broken the minute you invited the vampire into your house.
Oh, is that what it is?
So it's like if you said, "Yeah, come on in. You're the man of the house." You invited him in, so now a lot of the rules no longer apply.
Okay. Right. So going back to it, if vampires existed, right, in today's society. So your first thought is you kind of think it'd be interesting to be a vampire. Yeah?
Right.
Right. Okay. So personally, I don't know. I can't like the whole like immortality thing. It sounds kind of interesting, you
Yeah,
know.
that's
Just
basically what I'm here for.
yeah, just being able to like
Not
see
not just that,
civilizations rise and fall.
but I'm saying like eternal youth as well, because you still look
Oh
as
yeah,
young.
yeah, true, true. And you're like you're super strong and
Uh,
what have you. Like, what kind of vampire would you be? One of those vampires that are like, no, we don't eat, we don't drink human blood. I drink animal blood or whatever. Or are you gonna be like, yeah, I don't care. I'll drink a human's blood. I
it's gonna be
don't.
like, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to become a superhero of sorts. I will rid the
Oh.
world of people that I find not, not worthy. It's like, don't worry,
So you're
guys.
like,
I got this.
uh, man,
Suck
so
his
just
blood.
anybody you find
Yeah,
insufferable in
tread
any
tread
way, you
lightly.
could.
Tread lightly.
Oh my god! All right, yeah, no,
Uh,
I could dig that. No, that's good, man. Like I never really like thought about like, oh, it'd be cool to be a vampire. I always thought of vampires like just kind of a monster, you know?
mm,
That's the way I always thought about vampires. I mean, it's just a monster.
right.
But you know what? If you really think about it, they are kind of cool. But how do you think our society would treat vampires? Like everybody knows what vampires are. How do you think they would be treated?
In today's society,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel you'll have your group who's absolutely okay with it. Hell, they might even promote vampire and vampire behavior. They'll be like, yeah, it's cool to drink blood, and then everybody's jumping on the bandwagon,
Yeah, trying to make it more
trying to
socially
do it.
acceptable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you think we'd be, I'm using air quotes here, like progressive about it, like be more accepting of vampires and not try to
Some people would, some people would not. I feel religious sorts uh,
yeah, I was
might
thinking about
not
that.
take too kindly to it, right? So
Yeah.
vampirism has was kind of something that existed in religious texts to some degree. You know, people who drink blood. I can't remember the exact words that they would use, but they would describe vampire-like people.
Sure. Yeah. Wasn't it like
Uh,
supposed to be like a key to like maintaining youth, or it was believed to be so, them
r-
drinking blood?
right.
Right. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
so people might see it as satanic rituals or pagan rituals. I don't. It really depends on the religion and how they look at it. And now, if you go back to other points of history where people used to actually believe that eating the brains of your enemy would make you smarter.
Yeah. That's Wait, are you saying that that's not how it is?
I mean, I just don't think so. But then again, I've never eaten the brain of my enemy.
I haven't. It's on the old bucket list, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. Okay, yeah, I can imagine like very, very religious folk. Well, I don't want to say like very religious folk. I want to say more like, I don't even know if extremists is the word. You always have those people who flaunt their religion and try to push their agenda like in your face.
Hmm.
And I feel like those kinds of people who are like extremely outspoken, they would be out. They would find the vampires' homes and be like picketing outside
Hmm.
their their homes and be like you're a demon, go back to hell, kind of thing.
Right.
You know? Yeah, yeah. So I can definitely see that. I feel like they would be pretty constantly harassed. That's just my feeling about it.
I feel you're gonna have your good vampires and your bad vampires, right? Your people who are doing malicious deeds as a vampire versus the ones who are generally the nice ones, right?
Yeah,
And then you're
yeah,
gonna
which
get
is
your
the
groups
case
who are
in
gonna
anything.
go, look, uh, see the really nice people. Meanwhile, the other ones are being really malicious. So then you got the other group fighting against vampires. Uh, yep, no, it's in par with
Yeah,
with history as we know it.
yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking as far as vampirism goes, vampirism, vampire, whatever it's called, they would have to be governed in some way. Like, how do you think law enforcement
Oof.
or the government would like temper vampires? How do you think they would be governed, like given restrictions? Because I mean, obviously they can't just say no, you're not allowed to drink blood
Hmm.
because then the vampires would die, right? Because they don't.
As far as to what we typically know about vampires, yeah. Yeah.
They would either die or like just turn into a husk or whatever until they're revived again. I don't know how it works exactly. But yeah, how do you think the government would like set like what boundaries do you think they would set on vampires and their feeding habits?
It feel it depends on who's in control at the time, right? So some people might try to be a little more loosey goosey on it, and other people might try to want to control the vampires to the hardest degree, like keep law enforcement on them at all times, watching their every move. Big brother the shit out of the vampires. Uh,
Okay, all right. How do you think what do you think would happen to vampires in like let's say like communist uh countries?
Your blood? You mean our blood?
Oh man. Yeah, I don't
That
I don't
I
know.
feel that that's where we reach the point of some of your movies where it's like you must bring a virgin back to the house of the vampires so that everybody can feast upon that one living person's blood, right?
Yeah.
That's how I I think the communist vampires would handle it.
I'm wondering if there would be like a market created for like targeting vampires
You,
like oh
there
I
there
got this I
there'd
got
be a
this
black
farm of
market.
virgins, and we're they're donating they're like I got this like I have all these employees where okay, so these employees like you wouldn't have many qualifications to get this job, right?
Hmm.
You would just go to a farm, a blood farm. You would let them take some of your blood, kind of like a blood donation thing, but you would get paid for your time and your donation. Uh, I don't think vampires are very particular about blood types, are they?
Much to, I think there's only like one movie that ever like makes them out to be like super picky about the blood types, and like the most rarest blood type is almost like the finest wine. Like they absolutely enjoy it.
Okay, so there's like sommeliers of the vampire world.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I'm wondering if those farms would rather than be farms, they would be known more of like vineyards, and they would have like a tasting room and whatnot. So vampires would come and do a
All right,
tasting, you
so
know.
I did think about it. There's only one major thing that your common folk would have to do, and they would have to almost militarize blood banks so that the vampires wouldn't try to come in
Oh, that's
and steal
true.
all the
Yeah.
blood.
Yeah. And like also that blood there would be like because you know how you donate blood to like the Red Cross or
Hmm.
whatever or local hospitals and stuff like that, like they would they would actually have competition now,
Yeah.
you know, with these vineyards. Like I can't think of a better name for a blood uh, vineyard blood farm. What would that be called? I don't know. That's a question we'll have to post up
Oh,
and see who comes up
absolutely.
with the best answer for a blood vineyard.
All right. Um,
Yeah. Oh
but I
man.
was thinking eventually, like, it would get to a point where you would have like your black market for blood. It's just your guy out in the dark
Yeah.
street corner going, Psst, hey, you want some blood? I got I
Right.
got all these
But
types. Unzips his jacket. Look.
oh man, but I don't know if it's something that because that suggests like some kind of like illegal connotations, or maybe it's like to buy blood. It gets since there's a market for it now. It gets really expensive. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we live in the capitalist system, right? So everything eventually they want to create to be like, how can we get some money off of this?
Yeah, so it would be heavily taxed too,
Right.
yeah?
Oh, absolutely. Hell, they might even actually start selling it at the blood banks. They'll be like, you can come in here and buy some.
But that I feel like that would lead to uh more vampires acquiring blood illegally. They would just, you know, start mugging people for their blood, you know. You know what I mean? Like classic vampire stuff.
Right. Yeah. Classic.
Classic. Now, I do have a question. Would people have to start using blank doormats? Because you know how doormats always
Yep.
say like "welcome" or "come on
Y-
in" or
Yep.
something. Does that count as?
That is an excellent question, right? So, I mean, if you only go off of one of the movies, it's the man of the house has to have the like welcome the vampire inside. But I mean,
Right.
just today's age, anybody could probably just welcome anybody into a house. So yeah, you might just have to have a blank mat or says something other than welcome on it. There was a doormat at a job that I had gone to when I was working and doing like cable stuff, and the doormat said, "Ring the doorbell, win a dog."
Oh.
And I looked down at it, and I ring the doorbell, and I immediately hear a howl.
Nice. That's great.
And I had a big smile on my face. That was just the best moment that I ever had. And the lady who opens the door, she's just like, "Congratulations, you won."
You want a
I
dog?
was like, oh, hey.
Do you wanna do you have something else you wanna another topic or something?
Okay. I mean, I think this will go well with what we were talking about, right? Because we ended up talking about police enforcement, right?
Oh, okay.
So I had thought about it. Uh, what's a police encounter that you can talk about? Like, have you ever had like a weird encounter or an encounter that had kind of really got under your skin and went, why is an officer of the law acting this way? Or just
Oh,
any
no.
police encounter that would be really interesting because I got at least three.
Oh gosh, police encounters that I've had. I've had a few, not any that were, negative necessarily. I do remember one time I was driving to my cousin's house and I was 17 maybe at the time, maybe 16. I drove to my cousin's house and we were gonna smoke and I didn't have it, he had it. So I was driving to his house and he wasn't home. So he wasn't home yet. So I was like, ah, crap, I gotta find a place to park. And he didn't want me to park there because his dad was leaving that night. And he didn't want his dad to know that he was going to have me over. So I drove down the road a little bit and parked at a playground parking lot. And I didn't think anything of it at the time. I was like, it's just a parking lot. I'm just gonna park here quick. But it was after sunset, and I pulled in there and parked. And as soon as I put it in park, there's a knock on my window, and it was a police officer. And I was like, oh no. Like I don't know where this guy came from, but he was right there as soon as I put it in park. And he's like asking me questions like what are you doing here? Where are you going? And I was just like, I'm just going to see my cousin, but he hasn't gotten home yet, so I pulled in here to wait for a little bit and burn some time and just relax. And he's told me to step out of the car. And I was like, okay. So I step out of the car and he tells me to go stand away from the car a bit. And he proceeds to tear everything out of my car. He completely tears my car apart, looking for drugs, I guess. And I was like, oh my God. And then he stands up, brushes himself off. He walks over to me. He does the whole test, like he shines the light in my eyes and sees if my pupils are dilated or whatever, or bloodshot. And he's like, okay, just don't stay here very long. I give you 10 minutes, and I'll be driving around. So just be out of here by then. I was like, uh, okay, officer. So I had to like put my entire car back together again in under 10 minutes
Mm.
and then get the hell out of there. So it wasn't necessarily negative, but it was just a funny encounter. And it was late at night and I was like, God, like my car is in pieces now and I have to like put it all together again. It was just it was mostly just a funny memory. All right. So what are these stories that you
All
had?
right. Well, I started off with there was somebody that I was with who lived far away from me, and one day I was driving out that way, and I mean I was booking it. I was
Uh,
booking it, and I was driving like 65 and a 45. I seen all these cars going slow, so I'm in the left lane just traveling along, and then I notice on the left hand side there's a trooper sitting there. Oh, oh, heart
oh
just
no.
sank. And when I got the chance to go over to the right lane, I did, and I seen out of my side mirror him pulling his car around. I was like, "Yep, yep, yep."
Oh no.
He's coming for me. And as soon as he gets out in the lanes, once he gets into my lane, I'm already practically pulling over. Like my wheels are already starting to merge over, and he flicks his lights on, and I am immediately pulled over. It's,
Oof.
so I'm sitting there, the heart is racing, but I've accepted my fate, and
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sitting there. I have almost everything ready, and he comes up. Do you know why I pulled you over? I was like, yeah, no, I absolutely do. I seen you coming.
Didn't
Uh,
didn't even try to pretend. You're just like, yeah, yeah, no, I
yeah,
get it.
yeah. No, I I get it. So the fact that I just kind of accepted it, did not argue with this guy whatsoever. He decided to basically say, "Listen, this is not going to put any points on your record. We're just going to chalk this off as a disobeying traffic control devices and leave it at that." I was like, "Thank you so much."
Oh wow.
Is you still have to pay a fine for it,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
nowhere near
obviously.
what it could be. Uh, so same situation for the next story. And the reason why I prefaced with that is I was heading to work from all the way out where she lived, and it was like late at night. I was already like knew I was going to be late for work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm this is bad of me. Don't ever do this. So I decided to play a game. I figured every stop sign, every stoplight that I hit, I'm gonna undress and redress in an article of clothes.
Okay. All right.
It's just
Efficient. Yeah, no, I get
yeah.
behind that.
Um. So I'm sitting there at a light. It finally turns green. And, I make my left turn at a light, and shortly after I make that left turn, I see these lights behind me, and
Oh no.
I've already at this point just have this irrational fear of like cops pulling me over, even when I know that I'm doing nothing too terribly wrong.
Yeah.
Like aside from the speeding the one time and what's going on in this case, like anytime I see cops, I'm like, "Whoo! They don't pull me over for for something. I did nothing, but I'm still just irrational about it." So anyway, I make this left turn. I see these lights going on behind me, and I have no idea what's going on. All the fear has taken over all thoughts as to what did I do other than I made my left turn. So this cop comes at me, and they are talking real fast, really kind of throwing me off, and I'm trying to get them to not realize that I'm not wearing pants right now. So what I had done was at that red light that I was sitting at, I had just taken off my sweatpants that I was wearing.
Uh-huh.
So when these lights came and I was sitting there waiting for the officer, I quick just laid my sweatpants over top of my legs so it wouldn't be immediately obvious that I'm not wearing pants.
Sure. Yeah.
So as we're sitting there, everything looks normal. Person asked me then for my license and registration, as they do, and I'm trying to like reach without making it, without
Uh,
being able to see some leg.
without, without giving them a little peek.
So
Yeah, yeah.
sure enough, I guess I wasn't. Damn, I guess I was not slick enough about it. But I
Uh,
hear the question, sir, why are you not wearing pants? Which sends me into a panic laugh because I know what it looks like now, right?
oh
I mean, if you're an
man.
officer and you pull over somebody and they're basically pantsless, uh, what's your assumption?
I don't like to be too presumptuous about things,
Uh,
so I feel like I myself would just simply ask the curious question. Just like, hey, why aren't you wearing any pants, bud?
but I was like,
uh,
he's going to say drugs. Like, this is going to be the first thing he's going to pop into his head is I might have a drug case. Uh,
man.
so I couldn't find all my information. So he's like, that's okay. I'll give you a moment. I need to get your pants on. And I'm gonna need you to get out of the vehicle when I get back, and we're gonna do sobriety test. I'm sitting there, I finally get my pants on, and I'm just laughing in pain at myself for what has happened. And I'm like, boy, this is gonna be a great story. If not, if not just for me, but that officer's going to have a great story to tell everyone. So I did the test, and he's like, okay, everything's fine. Asked me where I was going, where I was coming from, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to work. I came from the the girl's house at that time, and he's like,
Uh-huh.
next time, just keep your clothes on and get more sleep.
Yep.
Yep, yep, you got it, sir.
Yep. Okay.
I'll be on my way.
uh, Man, now funny interactions with police officers, like everything just seems so like it seems like there's so many things that we don't consider, funny or humiliating at the time until you're confronted by a police officer about it. Um, I think I don't know. I feel like when you're faced with that level of authority, you're just like it's kind of like when like your dad sees how you would act around your friends and he just shakes his head at you and you're just
Mm.
like, oh, like
That parental figure that's just
yeah.
disapproving of what you're doing right now, and you're like, oh, oh,
That's something that my dad used to do all the time, where he would just shake his head and he's like, "That's not how I raised my boys."
what?
I
Where
was
have
like, "Of
I
course
gone
not,
wrong?
because you neglected us." Oh man. No, as far as funny police officer stories go, if you don't mind me ending on this one,
Yeah, go ahead.
um, I told you this story before, but I wanted to share it here. So where I live, there's a lot of homeless people and drug addicts, meth addicts, that kind of thing.
So I imagine
So
people
so
just going, all right, that narrows it down a little bit.
yeah, so it's not the greatest place, but for the most part they're pretty harmless. But there's this route that I go on that I like to run, and there's only a short little section of it that goes on the main road. All right, rest of it's back roads, and the back roads never had any problems. But then I got onto this main road, and it was going past a high school, right? And as I was running, there was this lady just standing there on the sidewalk, kind of pacing back and forth. And she looked to be like early to mid 40s. She was a little heavier set. Yeah. I don't know if that information is pertinent to the story necessarily, but it kind of like adds some flavor. So I was running down the sidewalk towards this lady, and she looks up and she stares me down, and she starts like kind of approaching me like sort of aggressively, and she starts waving her hand at me, and she yells out to me, no, 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 I got a bad feeling about you, you go back to where you came from. And at first I was put off a little bit. I didn't stop or anything, but I was put off a little bit because it was very unexpected. Uh, and then as I got closer to her, she lifted her shirt up at me and flashed me her breasts. Yeah. And
Yeah, just
I was like, odd. So like I turned my head and put my hand up just as a reaction, right? So I kind of turned my head away, put my hand up, and blocking the view. And she just goes, "Yep, you're a child molester." And I was like, "What?" So I just continued running past her, and there was nothing more. She didn't yell at me anymore or anything. I ran like maybe, I don't know, 50, 60 yards further, and there was a cop that had pulled over someone just right there on the side of the road. And he was walking away from the car he pulled over to get back into his squad car. And I ran up to the guy, and I was like, "Hey, there's this middle-aged woman right up the road that flashed me her boobs and called me a child molester. Now, I'm not entirely certain whether or not she was on drugs or that was some kind of flirtation device that I'm unaware of. Uh, but maybe you should check in on her." And he just starts laughing, and then he's like, "All right, I'll handle it." And he gets into the squad car, and I continue running. The way he reacted and just like laughed at it, it just made me feel like, this is just, another Tuesday for this guy. He's like, "Yeah, okay, I'll handle it, but no worries." It like puts into perspective like how much police officers have to deal with, like all the crazy stuff. Because I mean, in our day to day, I feel like we don't usually see this stuff,
mm,
because we're usually busy, or uh, people are working, or in their homes and things like that. But these police officers are always out on the road handling these weird and horrible situations, and just the fact that he could just laugh it off, and like it shocked me and like put me off, but he just laughed about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll handle it."
he's like,
you know
yeah, I know that. It's Debbie from downtown. She does this all the time. Well, I get this call about maybe twice a week. This is all that.
Nancy's out it again.
God,
Like, oh, it's
we
hilarious.
actually call her Nippy Nancy. She just
Thank you for joining us on the Merle and Locke podcast. If you enjoyed this banter, please consider becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/Merle and Locke, or simply follow the link in the description. Thank you.